have done an excellent podcast. I know
We're
like,
trying.
Zerper, Zerper.
And then we get to talk about Jewel at the end.
And Jewel.
Wrong, Alex.
Yeah.
We already talked about it.
My mother-in-law follows me on Twitter, and I forgot that fact. And so I was tweeting about how I switched from like 5% Jewel pods to 3% because my wife.
You've seen a lot in 8 years for sure.
It's been huge. The differences.
Well, because you got here basically like crash. But still,
worries,
we
but
could be.
Maybe don't say anything self-incriminating.
Behave as though we could be.
Yes,
Nick,
exactly.
if
Just to be safe.
I'm presuming that Jason's gonna go past my hard stop, so I'm gonna need to do some sort of graceful exit. What is the best way for me to do that so that way it's an easy edit and I also don't disrupt the show?
Okay, so don't worry about the edit.
Okay.
We're good at that. We could always make something easy. I would say that, unfortunately, you have, or I mean, not unfortunately. Yeah, just be honest. Be like, hey, let Jason know that you have to jet like right around 3:15,
Okay.
and so he'll know. And then maybe during one of the, if he does an ad break, just be like, hey, by the way, I have like, make sure you're checking time. Be like, hey, I got like 20 minutes left.
Do you mind bringing that up when he comes down? Because he can't get very mad at you, but I have to talk to him for an hour on camera.
Absolutely get mad at me.
Well, I mean, but like,
I will bring it up.
it won't be on camera at least. Having rapport is probably gonna help. Thank you, Nick. I'm sorry.
You're funny.
He'll get way more mad at me than he would at you. But I will absolutely let it.
If that's
He'll be cool with
If
it.
Okay.
it makes you feel any better,
knows.
I've walked out of Jason's show like 10 times.
There you go.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I actually do the Roundtable a lot, and I always have to go.
This is my first time doing this, and I have never actually left a show early.
Don't
So
even
I
worry
have
about it. Honestly, just own it, dude. You got
Yep.
places to be. What's up?
You're very, very important, and he's stealing your time.
Yeah, I know. Add a zero.
What's up?
Add a zero.
There's
We gotta get some shirts made. Start handing them out to people that we know.
Add a zero.
Jason had Gary Vaynerchuk on in like 2009.
Oh, God, yeah.
When the show first started, and he took a phone call during the show.
Gary?
Yeah.
I
And he's
100%.
like, "Hold up,
I believe that.
what's up?" He's like, "Sorry, it's my wife. It's my baby." And it's like the most preposterous.
Please tell me you have that video somewhere.
It is. It's on YouTube.
It's on
I
YouTube?
was talking about it yesterday. Jason's like, "Dude, you have to clip that."
That is the.
Yeah, it's really funny.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
My only Gary Vaynerchuk story is back when he was kind of blowing up and doing the Wine Library TV thing. I got an interview with him back when I was a little baby journalist, and he was. What's that?
You want to lower the mic?
Oh no, it's fine. It's fine.
I know. Can people know about this or no?
Oh no, it's just a really sweet story. Like our call kept dropping, and he kept calling me back so we can finish the interview consistently. He was on a car to the airport, and he called me back like 4 times so we could finish the interview. And I was like, all right, genuine guy.
Wow. That's fantastic.
A long time ago.
Yeah.
So I don't know if things have changed. I don't know him, but like that's my enduring memory of him and how he was super patient with me when I was like 20.
I will say, I think not a genuine guy, but genuine in every direction, right? Not
Right.
always, and it's not always good, but genuinely loves his wife enough to take a phone call
Yeah.
in the middle of a thing. Yeah. No. Yeah.
It's and now we're live, so I feel like I need to like care ever so slightly more about what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. But how live are we?
Yeah. I'm feeling
What's he doing?
morbid, or not morbid, mortal. No, that's not the word.
I mean, I will tell you, I am probably gonna have to. I'm gonna have to like call it shortly after because I got a kid at home who can be home for a while. He's 12, but like
Not for forever. Yeah.
he's gonna start smoking weed any second now, probably. So like, it's not true. It's not gonna happen. Not mine. Not my baby.
I mean, 12 is pretty early.
I know, but he's almost 13. It's freaking me out. It's freaking me out.
I'm on the like Liza and I are like planning like when we want to start trying to have kids,
Yeah.
and it's like less than a year away now. I know. Yeah. See that's the I feel
really
this like
real.
rising panic in my body about this.
Just go on a good couple of vacations now.
We can't because of her residency.
How long is that gonna be?
2.8 more years.
So you could have a baby in 4 years, and then you can have some vacation.
But then we'll be 34 or
Yeah.
33. So we're just gonna do it now. We're going for it. Well, in 10 months, but
Well, in 10 months. You guys are you're planners.
no, she is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say I think there's something to be said for that. Like the Bay Area people, I had my son when I was 31.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's when we'll have our first. give or
Right.
take.
That's awesome. Because when I'm 50, my child will be gone.
Yes, and you
And
have the
I will
rest of your
still
life.
be young and strong.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
I mean,
Um,
ideally he'll be gone. Who knows? But
Out.
he'll be gone-ish, right?
Out.
Like he won't.
Yeah, he won't be in your living room smoking weed,
Yeah.
driving you nuts.
He definitely will not, because I will not stand for that. Do that at your dad's house.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
Over here we have standards.
kind of great. And I was like the youngest woman, kind of by far, in my mom's group.
Oh, in your
31 is
group of
not-
moms.
In the group of moms in the Bay Area, they're
Yeah.
all having. I mean, I think I know a woman who's like, who
No, yes.
had her. Well, I have friends who have children my same age, who are in their 50s, mid 50s.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
Brain gum or whatever?
For
I'm
sure.
delighted that I.
Dude, I don't know. This is Ashley. by the
Hi,
way.
Ashley.
Hi, Ashley.
This is Alex.
I don't matter when it comes to TWiST, so.
I mean, we don't.
I don't believe that.
Yeah.
You don't need to remember my name.
Also, I love the acronym TWiST.
Twist.
I like that a lot.
As in us twisting in the wind.
Those are his birth messages.
That's why this happens once a year too.
You come in once a year?
Something like that. I don't know. 'Cause I'm just like,
I mean, the cool thing for me is, the 52 minutes of my time. This is gonna be a short shoot. I can't really fuck up in 50 minutes. I'm
you
gonna
have so many good things to say.
I'm gonna just leave you. Okay, let me put it this way. There's 3 people at this table. Somehow I have the fewest Twitter followers, and I'm the only person on that Wikipedia page. The internet is saying I'm the least important. Ergo,
We're just old.
Nope. I'm leaving it in the calm and competent hands of the real professionals.
Yeah. Huh?
That's what I'm telling myself. Is I'm just gonna
Right.
skate out the door.
Oh, it's sad. I'm sad. It's super annoying. Jeez. I mean, I get it. Raising a fund or whatever. I don't get it. I've never done that.
No, I have friends that have done it, but
It seems terrible.
it's a lot harder than people think that it is. But Jason's only looking to raise $50 million. I know this because I was sitting on the couch while he started the phone call.
Really?
Yeah. And so I'm like, just taking
I'm
notes.
so curious now.
So, hi, Jason. I hear you're raising $50 million from Yale.
Sounds great.
How's that going? Is that an Emmy or what do you call it?
It's a Webby.
A Webby. I see. I try to avoid award
Is it? Or
shows.
it's an Emmy? It's an Emmy.
Is it a national Emmy or a local Emmy?
It's probably a digital Emmy.
Digital Emmy. I didn't even know that was a thing.
I think it's a thing.
You know the one thing that
I'm gonna
Twit
go
does?
look. It's
Yeah, go for it.
time.
It is a thing.
It is the digital Emmy is a
Digital
thing,
Emmys.
right?
Yeah.
Jason should be down in just a minute.
Okay. I want a digital Emmy. Daytime Entertainment Emmy. Outstanding Children's Animated Program. Curious George PBS. For Jackie.
Yeah, she has 4 of them.
Oh my
Wow.
god. You know what? I believe that because Jackie is a baller and someday I'm going to steal her. Don't tell Jason.
Yeah, I can see that. She was super easy to organize with for
She
this.
is a fucking professional. It is such a delight.
That is one thing. Back to your point about being like treating your time like unobtainium. When I can work with someone who's a hyper professional, not that I'm always that good, to be super clear. I try. I aspire.
Same. Yeah.
Like when you run into someone who's that competent, it's just like I'm just gonna put myself in your arms. Like you're in charge, and I feel so good about this.
Yep. And I want to adopt them all. I get this like total competency crush on people like that where I'm
Yes.
just like, you're in my mental Rolodex for life.
I rolled in. She had this ready to go. She asked if I wanted a staple, handed me a pen, brought me down early, brought me up for makeup, sat me back down, double checked my shot.
Yeah. And you are literally like, just tell me what to do.
I feel cared for.
Yep.
I mean, my job is mostly to tell jokes, so I'm now set up for that.
Yeah. No, she's a pro. And I have worked with a lot of producers at a lot of.
We're going public on the YouTube stream.
Dun
not even
dun
waiting
dun.
anymore.
Nope.
Now we are officially generating content.
We are generating content at this moment. Smash
Yes.
that like button.
Smash that subscribe.
Sorry, smash that subscribe.
Smash that.
I had to make that joke on the other
Smash that
podcast that I'm
subscribe.
on, but I'm like, this is how the youth say it. Watch this. Smash that button.
Running.
Alex, I'm so sorry.
No worries.
Alex,
Mics are
to make it
hot.
up to you, I got a exclusive for you.
Okay.
I'm gonna give you the exclusive.
Mics
Well,
are
I'm
hot.
right here.
Sorry, he covers Venture.
Mics are hot. Alex has to
covered
walk
it.
out
Wait,
the door.
I have a whole series.
Do you
I
want
know,
a
I'm
hard
listening
out?
to
You're the worst.
If you walk out the door, maybe you guys can
I will
talk.
get you
I
both.
don't know if you have any hard
We can keep talking, but not too much longer.
Not
By
too much
3:30
okay.
for me.
3, 2, 1, me. Let's go. Let's do it.
Just to let you know, Alex may have to leave during the program.
It's prom. Yeah,
So
you'll
you
cut
will.
to me and we'll get him out.
Yeah.
No problem. Okay.
Just to let you know.
How are you doing, Jason? I've not seen you since Twit, which we've all been guests on, apparently.
I told him.
It's ridiculous. Things are obviously going well, but I keep setting like goals for myself,
Yeah.
and I've always had this like thing where I just double shit for myself, and then I just see if I can do it. And then the stupid thing that's happened is it started to happen, and then all of a sudden you're sitting there like, oh shit,
Now
it
I'm in it.
worked. Now what? Now I'm like drowning.
This is
an
a
opportunity.
terrible problem to have.
It's a drowning and opportunity kind of situation.
Have you seen that
All right.
DJ Khaled album,
Stop talking to him.
Suffering from
Start the show.
Success, when he's
Start the
doing
show.
this? Yeah.
Exactly, it's like that. I am flexing hard.
It is. I mean, it's your name on the show, man. I can't even make fun of you for flexing on
I
your
recently
own.
tweeted something about like this is the flexiest flex that ever flexed, but that has now been eclipsed.
Well, we're live, but we're probably not using this
Wilhelm.
bit, so we're probably good. Wilhelm is good, yeah.
Wilhelm. Okay, 3, 2, 1, me, please.
All right.
Thank you, Nick.
We are rolling. And in 3, 2.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of This Week in Startups. I'm your host, Jason Calacanis. And finally, you've been begging, you've been asking, it's been months, we're going to do a news roundtable. And I've got two of the greatest legendary guests on the podcast who do a great job on the news roundtable. Molly Wood is back on the pod. You know her, Molly Wood on Twitter, Marketplace Tech, previously New York Times, previously at all kinds of great places. Welcome back
Thanks.
to the pod. Good to
I'm
see you.
Delighted to be back.
Yeah,
You
it's
look
been a
good.
while. You look great, too. Alex, also, Wilhelm is with us. He is the editor-in-chief of Crunchbase News.
Yes, sir.
And he is in the First Name Club on Twitter. Molly will work on that with you. I did see...
Would you not get Molly Wood if that were your name, though? Come on.
No, I think
Like,
you
I
should.
could've
I have
gotten
Jason
just-
Calacanis, but we got to
I
get
could
you
have gotten
Molly.
plain old Molly, but like,
Yeah.
The downside, though, is there is a spam problem. I still get stuck in a
Yes.
lot of things that I can't quite get out of, and Twitter will be like, you're getting a lot of
Oh.
notifications. Do you want to turn them off? I'm like, I can't really, but also, everyone, please leave me alone.
Instagram, since I moved to @Jason, has been insufferable because people on Instagram are dumb and they just put @Jason, what's up?
Yeah.
And my entire feed is not, so I just can't use it.
Are you saying that Twitter users are more intelligent on
course they are. I know,
I
average
know I have
than...
questions about.
Because
I would say absolutely there's a standard deviation of at least 1.5. I think it's 10 IQ points between the two platforms.
So Instagram is like the reality TV of social
the dumb
media.
people.
Yeah, and then Facebook's
But they're beautiful.
one...
And children.
It's the Miami of the, it's not New York, it's not
Amazing.
San Francisco, it's kind of like the Miami of
That's the
social
perfect-
media, right? Like
That's the perfect metaphor.
San Francisco is like the New York Twitter. Facebook is kind of middle America, and that's the Miami. It's like they're beautiful, gorgeous. No offense to the people of Miami, you're beautiful and gorgeous, but
But you're also very stupid, apparently, but that's okay.
yeah, but you're also very dumb. No,
Sorry,
I didn't say
sorry.
that. I did not say that.
I think this is going well.
I love
Well,
this.
okay, we
I
just
love
lost 1/50 of the audience in Miami. We have
Pretty big market. But,
Look,
oh,
Yeah.
well.
Oops. WeWork. Speaking of insane and stupid, the WeWork IPO is going to happen.
Maybe.
Maybe. The founder, Adam Neumann, is that
Newman, I believe.
Newman is a maniac. He creates more. I've never seen more self-inflicted wounds in a startup, and I was the third investor in Uber. Hey-o.
Hey-o.
Hey,
I was hoping you were going to go
Speaking
there.
of which,
I had to cut you off. I knew you were going to do it.
Well, I'm reading Mike Isaac's book right now. We'll
Am I
talk
in
about
it?
that later. I'm sure you are.
I
haven't
asked him,
gotten
am I
to
in it
yet.
or not? And he's like, there's one way to find out.
Yeah, I'm on page 2, so I can't comment yet. But this weekend, I'm really excited about getting through
I'm
that.
going to listen to it. Have you started it?
Yeah.
How deep in
I'm
it?
on page 50 or so. You
How
haven't
is it?
shown up yet, but I'm sure you will.
Yeah, maybe. Good writer?
Yeah.
He's
I mean,
his first book.
He's a great writer. It's his
He's a
first
good
book.
journalist,
I'm-
but a
look,
good writer?
I'm a little mired in like the history stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Like I'm like, I don't need to know everything about Bill Gurley. Like,
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's focus on the train wreck du jour, which is WeWork. It seems like he's done everything he can to derail his own success. He came up with his own IP and created an LLC to sell the name of WeWork to WeWork
yes.
for $6 million.
Fireable offense number 1, right?
Sold $700 million worth of his shares pre-IPO, which I don't think anybody else had a shot to do, but not uncommon, but certainly not a good sign.
I think he sold a fraction of that, and the other ones he borrowed money against.
Right.
So there's a variety of transactions that are part of that blended figure. It's no better than what you're saying, but just for the sake of
So
being
he went to
technically.
Goldman and borrowed against his private company stocks or something like
I
that?
don't know which banker he used, but that's
Gotta
the
be
way that it was
Goldman.
reported
Goldman,
to me.
That's how Goldman gets a lot of business.
I mean-
I heard.
Oh, really?
Allegedly.
Goldman.
Is that they'll?
Allegedly. I told you I'd give you a scoop. You can do your own digging, but
Thanks.
a great
I'm sure you
way.
told him you'd give him a scoop.
I'm going to give you both scoops because nobody. Anyway, here's how it works in the big leagues. I'm told by my big league friends, not me. But
Oh, Jason, I always look forward to seeing you.
Wait, hold on.
So-
I'm going to write this down because I don't know anything about the big leagues. Help.
in the big leagues, behind the scenes, you make a bunch of money, and then you could say, I never sold a share of my company. So Larry and Google could say, I never sold a share. And they could have billions of dollars in loans from Goldman. Now, I'm just picking a name. I'm not saying it's Goldman. I'm just picking a random name.
Random.
I just thought of a G, and that's what came to mind. Now, if you were personally getting $1 billion at the lowest possible interest rate that poor people are not allowed to get, because poor people have to pay 10% or 20% or 30%, but a person who doesn't need the money gets to pay 1% on $1 billion, $10 million a year. So I give you the billion, you give me $10 million a year for 20 years. It's 200 of the billion. The other 800 increases in value. Anyway, we'll put that aside. It's free money. Who are you going to do business with in the future for IPOs and secondaries?
Right.
The people that just gave you a bunch of money way ahead of time.
But like separately from that.
Yes.
So there's all this financial shenanigans, and they are shenanigan-y
Shenanigan.
in the extreme. But then there's also just the part where it's like, I'm sorry, is there any possibility of making money here? Let alone, should
Yes.
you even be allowed? We were talking about this before you got here. Like, isn't there a rule? Like, can't the SEC be like, "Ooh, no, you are literally a risk to public markets. You can't go public."
Molly called this the banana pants rule, which I
banana
think
pants
is
rule.
brilliant. As in,
Banana pants.
If this is, quote, banana pants, you are not allowed to go public. Do not cross go, etc.
That would be against free markets. The idea behind free markets would be sophisticated investors should be sophisticated, and they have the most sophisticated of investors in this company who should be able to unpack this.
The problem with that argument is we had the most sophisticated investors in the world, the Vision Fund, in this company, and I don't think they made a great investment. And they're so sophisticated they managed to confuse themselves into doing this deal repeatedly. I mean,
Ooh,
look.
I have a whole bunch of questions about that, though, and their actual relative sophistication.
Yeah.
I was trying to be sarcastic about it, but
And
my
that question is basically brandless.
WAG. I mean, just picking Vision Fund investments that don't look like they're going to go well.
There's a little Brewster's Millions thing happening with the Vision Fund that I'm not sure is propping up the best companies.
For those of people who were not born before 1990, Brewster's Millions was a hilarious comedy in which Richard Pryor must spend $1 million or $10 million?
It's 10 million, I think.
10 million, something like that.
I was born in '89, so I've
In
seen it.
24
Which-
hours.
He has to spend it within like a week or something in
Yeah.
order to get the $100 million.
Right.
So he has to become sick and tired of spending money, and he keeps trying to spend the money. And I won't give any spoilers, although
good
you
movie.
have had 40 years to see the movie, people.
I was
So
gonna
I'm
say,
not sure where
I
the
think the spoiler window has expired. But you see what I'm saying, which is that at some point you have so much money, you just got to stash it places. And I
Yes.
feel like WeWork is like the inevitable consequence of too much money.
All right, let me ask you guys a question. Is there a fundamental business in buying real estate assets or leasing them incredibly low in distressed areas like the Tenderloin, like they did with the Golden Gate where we used to have our offices, and then making them look really hip on a really low budget and then renting them out for 10 times what you leased them for? Is that a real business model? Do we agree that office leasing and sharing is a business model? Because there are other companies that do it, right? Like,
Sure.
so that there is a
It-
business there.
It
Well,
can
yeah,
be.
I mean, commercial real estate is based on that entire concept. So we know that it is, but it's
Well, I'm
just
talking
not
specifically at the middle person.
the middle person part.
Yeah, because there are those embassy suites, right, and stuff like that.
I
You've
guess.
been to those.
It doesn't sound like a super high margin business because real
No.
estate is not cheap anywhere in America, but
Yeah.
And money has been cheap, but that has made real estate more expensive. You're not going to discount even if interest rates are low. I think it is, but you said, like distressed area, make it cool on the cheap, make sure you have a strong multiple of what you're taking in versus what you're paying out. None of those things seem to apply to the the We company's model. If you look at their free cash flow, their GAAP results, and also their really obfuscated gross margins, which you have to kind of unpack because they didn't report cost of revenue, which is weird and not a good sign. I don't know how good of a business this is at all. And they're torching so much money both on a GAAP and cash flow basis that you can't even unpack what is a growth payment or an investment versus what is just a loss.
so even if the scenario you laid out is a good business model, and that's a big if, WeWork is in no way practicing it in a way that
Right.
seems to be a long-term good idea.
The early business model, I thought, was brilliant. You buy distressed assets, you make them fancy. Hipsters want to go to the new area. So Williamsburg, circa whatever, 2000.
Sure.
Tenderloin,
Yep.
whatever they call the Tenderloin adjacent area, circa 10 years ago.
And there's even a version of that, like the Ray Kroc version. That's the guy who took
Yeah,
McDonald's
yeah.
into the empire
Founder,
that it was, which was
incredible.
all about. God, that movie was amazing.
Amazing movie.
Which
So good.
movie?
The Founder.
The Founder.
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't heard of
It's
this.
the guy who played Batman, Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton.
Oh.
In what might be his best role ever. And the film,
Yeah, it's
The
incredible.
Founder, it's a total sleeper, but it's based upon the song Boom Like That by Mark Knopfler about Ray Kroc. Mark Knopfler of Dire Straits read his autobiography, wrote the song Boom Like That about Ray Kroc. A director heard the song, found the source material, and then made the movie. Little known fact.
I did not know that, and I interviewed the director.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Boom Like That. Look at the song.
So what's interesting about The Founder is the story of a McDonald's.
Yes.
And how this guy Ray Kroc essentially wrestled the company away from the McDonald brothers. And I'm going somewhere that is not just about the movie. And over the course of growing McDonald's into the juggernaut that it is today, someone eventually comes to him and says the real value in McDonald's franchises has nothing to do with hamburgers and everything to do with real estate.
I was about to say yes.
Right. So there's a version of this story where Adam Newman goes, not only could I buy a building in the Tenderloin, I could buy all the buildings around it. And you have like
Yes.
the put a stadium in a distressed area
Yep.
thing where then you do economic development and
Sure.
you build a whole community around it. And you don't call it a tech company. You call yourself a real estate developer. Like there was a version where he could have made tons of money turning
Right.
the Tenderloin into a whole cool
The 4
block, and he
blocks
owns the whole
around
block.
it would be great.
Yeah.
So in the model,
We should start that.
Well, no, wait a second. It's interesting. In the movie and the story, Ray Kroc screws the other investors and owners and shareholders, let's call them shareholders,
Yep.
by owning the real estate under the brand.
Right.
And WeWork, am I correct that Adam Newman owns the buildings
Yeah.
So
Yes.
and is leasing them back?
And is leasing them back.
Is he doing
saw
a
the
Ray
movie!
Kroc? He saw the movie and he Ray Kroc it.
Guys, we have figured out the mystery.
Oh my God! I wonder, like,
Whoa. I have a little bit of a goosebump right now. I think we may have actually hit on
he
something.
stole the brand name.
He
So
stole the brand name,
really,
just like Ray Kroc.
Just like Ray Kroc. Ray Kroc was like, I need to own this. And they said to Ray Kroc at some point, why do you need to own it so much? And he said, it's the name.
Yep.
The name McDonald's is just so special. I have to own the name. And that's what Newman did. He owns the name and licensed it. The best
this is
tweet
a
for just
blockbuster.
$5.9
This is a
million.
blockbuster story. You got this one, okay?
Okay,
we
thanks,
just did
boss.
it. We workshopped it.
Appreciate it.
We don't have to get any credit. You just take that one.
I mean,
from
it's a little bit
Marketplace.
scooped on your show.
No, the show
but-
comes out in 3-4 hours, and people.
You can get it done in that time.
leave
Come
it
on,
down by
Molly.
Monday or Tuesday. But
I
anyway,
want to point out, though, that while we are laughing about this and making good analogies to other business arcs, this is not traditional. It's not great ethics, and I don't think that looting the company that you not looting per se, but taking economic advantage of the company that you own a supermajority of voting shares in is a great way to run a company, especially when you have a lot of external investors. Don't try this at home. Sequoia won't put up with it, or Andreessen,
But
or
apparently the SEC will. Like, I'm still a little stuck on that.
yeah, it's I got told early on in my career that the appearance of impropriety is impropriety. And this was told to me by the general counsel of Sony. And because I was talking about stuff, I was like, is this illegal or that illegal? I said, Jason, it's not about legal or not legal. It's about the appearance of impropriety. And what Newman has not grokked, and this will be his downfall. And I predict that WeWork is going to collapse.
Yeah.
And he's going to get ousted. That's my prediction. He's ousted. The thing is going to collapse. And it's going to be a mess, is my prediction. I think a lot of people feel the same way. And it's not because it's not a great business. I think it's an okay to good business, and it'll wind up being good to great. That's my honest belief. There could be a good business in here
so
if it
it'll
was
collapse
disciplined.
first, and then it will.
Something like that.
Okay.
And who knows what will cause it? It could be black swanish. I have some theories. But the lesson here for founders, and I tell this to founders, is don't do anything that's close to the line. If he took $700 million out, okay, we would all be like, But you still need to make the $6 million licensing the name to the company. You just took $700 million out.
And do you really need the company to pay you rent on buildings that you
Such a
own?
bad look.
Yeah.
The appearance
Even
is
if there's
so
a reason,
bad.
and they gave this whole convoluted, they were like, well, it increased the availability of space when no one else was buying it, and so he had to buy them under his own. And it was like,
No, you didn't.
Still no.
What he needs to do is he needs to take this We family of trademarks, and he has to say, you know what? I did this, and I realize this was probably a mistake, and the optics aren't great. I'm going to gift it back to the company, and I'm going to give the company back the $6 million. And then he should say, the $700 million I have and all that stuff. I've given it some thought, and I am going to put myself in a twice as long lockup of the other employees and investors to show I'm long. This is what I would do
That's smart.
if I believed
Both
in
of
the
those are
business.
actually very good ideas.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I counsel companies now for a
Oh, no,
living.
no, I didn't mean that sarcastically. I
Yeah.
meant that actually, if he did those tomorrow, it would be materially good for the IPO. Like these
Yeah.
would be intelligent things to do.
Yeah.
Right. And so I don't know who's advising him, but not.
I want to talk about that because when we give founders now, like the industry of Silicon Valley has a founder-first focus now, more so than it used to, because founders now have more control in investing
It's a disaster.
climates. And so you can end up with the founder having kind of voting control even past an IPO. We've seen this with Facebook. It's worked out kind of. And in this case, hasn't worked out quite as well. Do you think he just doesn't have people around him, Adam Newman, that are telling him this is a mistake? Because we sit around here, we look at this document for 5 minutes, and we're like pulling our hair out going, what is this? What are we looking at?
Banana pants.
Banana
It's
pants.
banana. I could tell you what happens.
Okay.
When people get rich and powerful, I got a number of friends who are, the people around them who can tell them the truth, that group gets fixed.
You mean set, like it stays?
Gets set.
Okay.
Because when you're a billionaire, anybody you meet after getting rich, you can't trust their advice. Because you're a billionaire now, and they want your money, and they want your influence, and they want to stand next to you in a picture. So they're left with a small cohort of people. Then that cohort of people will then, some group of them will lobby those people for money and try to, trade off of their good name. So then the group gets reduced even further. And so if you have somebody like my very close friends, Travis, Elon, Chamath, people you cover, the number of people who can tell Chamath or Elon or Travis, I disagree with you on this one, is small. And it's not that those people don't want the candid advice. It's that the people on the other side are nervous. If we're sitting here and the big boss, you want to tell them they're wrong? It's a very hard thing to do. And you have to, as you go up the stack and become more powerful, more influential, or a billionaire, you have to fight to get candid advice. And you are always wondering if you're getting it. And in this case, he's a narcissist
Right.
and a maniac, obviously, right, who doesn't have good judgment. That's just plain and simple.
And best case, if you're in this scenario, some paranoia sets in to all of your points. Plus, over time, some paranoia sets in. You
Right.
get this bunker mentality. Pretty soon, you
Sure.
don't think you trust the people that you trust. Like you torture
Absolutely.
your
Game
vizier
of
with your
Thrones.
dragon. Boom.
Yeah.
And you
so
just,
he,
yeah. So
he
he's-
did not have a foundation that was strong enough to handle this amount of power, this amount of privilege, this amount of money, and he just makes bad decisions. And somebody needs to just, if it was Masayoshi-san who put the most money in, needs to get on a plane, one of his planes, and just sit the kid down and say, I know I gave you all this money. A, B, and C. Number one, you're giving the trademark, or I'm out. I'm selling my shares. The
Which
second
will
I-
collapse and tank the company.
Yeah,
Like,
Masa says I'm out for this behavioral reasons.
it's over.
It's over. And so that's what needs to happen. Is somebody needs to put their foot down with this founder and say, listen, this is just bad optics.
Is it also possible that this founder is in hundreds of millions of dollars worth of debt? Like, I was sort of trying to do the math here, and I'm like, even if he got paid $6 million and he got paid some rent and whatever, if he's taken out, it sounded like he has taken out multiple loans in the tens of millions
Those are
to hundreds
the
of millions
recourse of those
dollars.
loans is his shares,
Right.
so they're not personal recourse loans.
So he can't lose.
So
his
you
own.
take
So he can't lose
I see.
that
Okay.
money?
It could get problematic,
Right.
but he's not going to have to file personal bankruptcy. So here's the great rub: you're an average civilian. You take out a loan, mortgage, bank loan, whatever. You're personally on the hook. You become rich. You got the stock offer, equity. You take a loan against it. You never have to pay tax. It's a loan. Not only do you not have to pay tax, you might be able to get a tax write-off for the loan. Not only do you not have to pay tax, now you have that loan. It's not personal recourse. You've put your shares up as the recourse.
I really don't want to be a personal citizen anymore, kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
It's pretty crazy, right?
And still none of this falls under Banana Pants SEC rules. Still no. All fine. This is all
It's
fine.
not the SEC's
It's all
job.
fine in America.
It's not the SEC's job to protect Goldman.
Right.
It is their job to protect
Right.
civilians and make sure that things are on the up and up.
Yeah, I just think about a pension fund eventually being
Yeah.
invested in this company, and I'm like,
Some of them will be.
yeah,
Yeah. No, they
unquestionably.
don't necessarily have to be. There could be no appetite for the stock when it goes public. That's the big
And
fear.
that's what I wanted to talk about next. What
Does
is
that
the
happen?
chance that this IPO doesn't go out because they can't find a price that the company is okay with and the market will accept as palatable? I mean, I don't think this was a topic of discussion before we saw the S1, but now we've all seen it. I'm curious if anyone's willing to put their foot in the water here and say that it won't happen. I don't know enough to really make a call, but I'm curious. Molly?
I mean, I look at this and I'm like, there's no way this could happen, but apparently, but a whole bunch of things have happened in just the last couple of years that I never would have thought would happen. Like, presumably someone still thinks that there's money to be made here, and if there's any money to be made, why wouldn't it go forward?
And just wait for the news about the WeWork summer camp to drop.
Wait, this year's summer camp?
Just all summer camps.
And there's a universe in which that would be super smart.
I mean,
If they dump this guy,
I'm just gonna say, you know what the summer camp is? Like all the employees go upstate New York and go crazy.
That's when they Beyonce come out
I
and
thought
give her
you meant
stock.
that they would literally like buy space and then hold summer camps there for like poor kids because I'm a dumb.
No, they've had a summer camp for like.
You know what would
years.
be awesome is
Yeah,
if
they
they
had a
would
summer
did
camp.
my thing.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's not a summer camp. No, there's literally a summer camp that occurs.
summer
So
camp.
imagine you had
Such a naive.
just imagine
All right.
a world in which Twitter decided, you know what would be a really great idea? If we had all of our employees go up to, I don't know, Napa, and we just created a giant, like, personal Burning Man to occur inside of our company.
Great.
From what I understand, they've been running a Burning Man of WeWork, and people come back, and every year a couple of people don't go back to work. This is what somebody an insider told me.
Oh dear God.
And that there's like this huge liability of this like
It's like
giant.
ironically back to the
Coachella.
Uber book.
Yeah.
It starts with that big X to the X week that they did, or
What was the
10 to
X?
the 10. They did
Oh,
when
the
they hit
Vegas
$100
party?
billion and they did the Vegas week of parties and
Yeah.
some like one guy called up 2 prostitutes and he robbed them blind. They got robbed blind and then they were fired on the spot and it was just like on and on and on. It's a pretty good book actually.
You never, I mean, in the old days, everybody would take their retreats in Vegas and do all this kind of stuff, like Microsoft. Everybody would have
Yeah.
these giant things because you needed to have a stadium that could fill, or halls that could fill tens of thousands of employees. That's when you see, like, those guys dancing on stage and screaming developers. Like, those are almost all
Steve
in
Ballmer, a
Vegas.
famous
Right,
moment that
right.
everyone's
Yeah.
seen on YouTube. Yeah.
I really,
Those days are long over.
I really want to start my version of the company where we actually do like block by block development, like stadium style, and then also host summer camps for poor kids.
Yeah,
like actual
summer camps for
summer
poor kids,
camps.
yes.
I
Summer
don't
camp for
think-
adults?
No one's gonna give me money for
Yeah,
that.
I was going to say,
No.
the Vision Fund's not calling you up. Okay, well, anyways, I'm glad I'm not alone in the WeWork chaos because I was concerned that I was too stupid to figure it out. I was missing something very important, but it doesn't sound like it. So
What
stress
to
out.
you is the worst part of all of this? The business model,
Yeah.
the personal red flags he keeps throwing up, or something else?
The fact that I cannot, with complete confidence, tell you their GAAP gross margin.
Oh.
And I'm talking about that is a fundamental,
Yeah.
basic way to understand the quality of revenue in a business that helps you understand their burn rate. Are they burning money to build a recurring, strong revenue base, or are they burning money to build a revenue base that may have 5% gross margins? And if they are doing that, they are throwing tons of good money to get bad revenue, and then it's ridiculous. But because they set up the S1 in such a way that they don't actually break that out, my hands are off. I'm just
Yeah.
I'm
There
not
was
even going to give 1,000 miles of it.
There's one financial analysis firm which I think is fascinating that essentially specializes in obfuscation, like in determining how much obfuscation or
Oh, I saw this.
concealment
Yes.
is contained in
How
financial
opaque
filings.
things are, yeah.
And this guy said, "Look, this is the highest degree of obfuscation I have ever seen in
Wow.
a financial filing because, like you said, they invented." I mean, and other companies have done this, like Uber and Lyft did it, but when they
AOL
went
did it.
public, AOL
Yeah.
did it.
Yeah.
It is not uncommon for companies to invent some kind of metric that makes them look great,
Yeah.
such as impressions.
Yeah, sure.
But he was like, everything in here is designed to cover up their business model, and that is a screaming red flag.
All right. Skipping from the disaster that is WeWork, Peloton, which is delightful, and I love my treadmill, my Peloton tread. They filed for IPO. Now, they haven't turned a profit yet, but they have $915 million in revenue in the past 12 months, I guess June to June. Over 510,000 subscribers, which has doubled since 2017, 2018. And I guess SoulCycle is doing a Peloton competitor. And that'll put SoulCycle together with Equinox. And I guess some people think it's elitist, Peloton, but it actually isn't. I mean, it's $2,200 for a bike, but it's only $20 or $40 for a membership, and you can use the Chinese cheapest bike possible with an iPad, and that's what people who can't afford it do.
But
Pretty expensive.
people who can't afford it don't have high-speed internet. They can't afford iPads. This is not just for the 1% of the 1%, Jason. I agree with you, but it's not exactly aimed at everyone in America because, the stats, half Americans can't afford a $400 emergency expense.
Fake news.
I mean,
Fake news stat.
$2,200.
I've been called fake news.
No, but that is the fake news stat, by the way.
I read
because
the analysis of the
analysis of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, you read that
it's
too.
wishy-washy. The point is, most Americans don't have a lot of money, but I do agree this is not a $10,000 bike. It doesn't cost the same as a used car.
I mean, if you
Well,
compare
but
it to a
even when
gym
you buy the-
membership,
people still buy like a ton of equipment to go along with it, and I mean, $40 a month is not that much to see. I don't know.
I think it's 20.
I will tell
It's
you.
$39 if you have the bike. I think it's $20 if you use your own. device.
So 20, if you use it, is just a little more than like Spotify or Netflix, right?
Yeah, I think that's probably a future growth business for them. Then try to convert those people into the higher price customers that buy the equipment and so forth. I like
See,
it as
that's
a
the
funnel.
hack people don't know, and I
mean,
think that
I'm
that's
just going to say that everyone I know who has a Peloton
is rich.
is rich.
I'm just newsflash: you live in the Bay
And,
Area.
and they're
That's the thing. Like,
Yeah, we
fair
live here.
point.
Yeah.
Everyone I know is rich.
Yeah.
But they, like, you look at the marketing and the beautiful houses that it's in. Like, there's no question. I think that they're look. Every company is cultivating a premium brand right
Yeah.
now, so it's no surprise that Peloton is positioning themselves as a premium product with a premium clientele who is,
Yeah.
you can bounce a quarter off those asses. Like,
Yes, it's incredible.
it's the whole goal. It's working. I want one.
Yeah.
I want one
I
too.
want that.
Yeah, I got it.
Thing.
I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been like 3 weeks.
But
I
I
got it already.
don't. But I would. I think it's a little elitist. As a
Here's the thing:
product.
have you guys used it? You have used it.
I've
It
used
is
it one time
the-
for 5 minutes, and I
Yeah.
totally want one.
It's the Tesla, iPhone, whatever you want to call it. The user experience is so buttery and awesome. It is like using an iPod or iPhone or Tesla for the first time. It's just perfect and flawless. And it actually, when I look at companies, I always look for companies that I think will induce consumption. Like Uber and Airbnb induced people to use their products more,
Yes.
right? It's like those markets manifested because of those products being so good. And that's what Peloton's doing. I think they're going to,
As a product company, it's brilliant.
yeah, they're going to get people to take their old iPad or their phone. I mean, I see people on their iPhone using Peloton. Next time you go to like 24-hour fitness or whatever, you'll see people with an iPhone with a Peloton class
Right.
on that machine.
So that's the other thing I think is super smart is that Peloton is also capitalizing on this trend of sort of the live group workout thing so that you don't actually have to have the hardware. And I think not divorcing themselves from the hardware as the only opportunity and the only in, or like creating a treadmill product
Yeah.
for people who don't cycle is smart.
Before we move on from this, though, if you go back to commentary before the S1 dropped, because people have been looking forward to this IPO for some time now, there was discussion about margins and where they made all their money. And the conversation was mostly around they probably break even on hardware and they make tons of money off their subscriptions.
Yeah.
It turns out they have exactly the same gross margin, 43%. And that means their hardware business is better than you thought. Software business is not quite as good, but still relatively strong. So
It
they-
makes sense to me that the
interesting.
hardware business is high margin because I paid $4,000 for that tread.
I know. They cost twice as much as the bikes.
And it costs twice as much as the bikes, and it is the best treadmill I've ever owned. Right? I mean, I had a Life Fitness gym one previously. Like I had the gym model that was $5,000, and this is better, and it's $4,000, and it has a monitor that is the size of the largest like iMac. It's stunning, the tread.
Then how do they have that kind of margins? Because it sounds very expensive. you
I
know?
think it's kind of like WeWork. If you these D2C brands, because they do everything themselves and they study the customer, they just make better products. So like Life Fitness can never make a great product if they're selling to a gym and then the gym is selling to the customer and then the customer gives feedback to the gym and it never gets to Life Fitness. Right? There's just like a game of telephone going on. But D2C businesses, they can study the data. Imagine if Life Fitness or whatever treadmill had all the data of every Equinox and what happened on those machines. That's what Peloton has. They have you log in. They know exactly how many miles you ran, exactly how many spin classes you did, and then they can iterate. And the product iteration cycle gets better.
And then to be honest, I don't think that it's not a drawback for Apple to be a premium brand. It's not a drawback for Tesla to be a premium brand. If they have those margins and they want to continue to establish themselves as a premium brand, they can raise the prices on the bike and the,
Yeah,
they
and the
could- they
treadmill.
definitely
And I don't
could.
think that that's actually a drawback.
I think they'll go down market. What will happen is as they scale, let's say they increase the margin another 20% because they order 1 million bikes next year. Well, then they can just lower the price 20% and still make the same margin essentially, and still have like the lifetime value of all these customers. So they'll go down market just like, the $150,000 Tesla resulted in a $45,000 Model 3. It's going to be that. And if you look at BMW, and Mercedes, they started making $35,000, $40,000 cars.
The
$40,000?
BMW 1 Series, the Mercedes little one, whatever it is. Yeah.
The one
Smart.
everyone's buying right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a small Mercedes now?
Yeah, it's like the little boxy one. It's the successor to the GLK 350, which was, I thought, the ideal Mercedes because it was such a cute little box. And then
Got
this
it.
one's all like soft and.
Yeah. So
So
they
it's
all
a
went down
tangent.
market. I wonder what you can get
They
into
went
a
down
Mercedes or
market-ish,
BMW.
but they're still a
35
BMW,
or 40?
so-
Probably about 35.
You can, yeah.
I mean, think about that.
37, I think, is like an X1 or a one, yeah. Which is,
That's pretty amazing
Not
that
out of
they
reach.
went down that far down market. And they have Mini Cooper, which they own, BMW
Yeah.
owns, which is
but so
20.
yeah. But so
Yeah.
even a
25.
down market, I mean, $37,000 is still a very expensive car.
Yeah.
That's
For
still a $500
most
to $600 payment.
Middle class.
For people, right?
Yeah.
Middle class doesn't exist, turns out.
Oh, really?
That's not a thing anymore. Yeah, we don't
Bummer.
have that.
Not since 2004. But one thing to keep in mind, though, the growth of this company, they've had fantastic revenue growth over the last 3 years. They broke down their fiscal calendar over the last three fulls. And I think their marketing spend went from like 180, like 350 last year. So they're really spending to grow this brand. The marketing that you're talking about with the people and the cute butts and the whole thing. It's working, but it's also expensive and they're paying for it. So it's a good business. I like the margins. I don't love the increase in net losses. And I'm a little concerned about S&M spend versus organic growth. That said, compared to WeWork, it's literally the best company of all time.
Okay, and now we play.
That was amazing.
All right, now we play my favorite game, A or B. Okay, grab a piece of paper and a pen. Company one, you have to put your entire life savings, your entire 401k, your kids' college fund, everything goes into one company. Peloton or WeWork. 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Peloton.
Peloton, obviously.
Peloton.
Yeah.
Okay, now we do it again.
Oh.
Okay.
I love this game.
This is a fun game.
Here we go.
Okay.
Now, Peloton v. Impossible Foods. 3, 2, Peloton.
Peloton.
Impossible.
Interesting.
Ooh, why? Here we go.
Well, okay, this is going to sound a little self-serving, but I've been doing a whole bunch of coverage on climate change and the tech that can help us adapt to climate change, and have determined that essentially the potential economic market for technologies and food technologies related to climate change is everyone on Earth.
Got it.
So,
So,
like,
the total addressable market is everybody.
The total addressable market is everyone, and we're
it.
like in this golden age of food right now, right? Where we're like, yeah, we can eat all the meat we want or whatever. This is completely unsustainable.
Right.
Like eating actual animals is completely unsustainable.
Yes.
Everybody now knows that going vegan is like almost the only personal choice you can make right now that could have a material impact from a carbon perspective. And millennials and their children really care about that.
I like it. I like your thinking.
This is actually true. As a millennial, I hear a lot of people talking about this. People trying to fly less to reduce their carbon footprint, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know how widespread it is, but it's part of the conversation now in a way that it wasn't 5 years
As a
ago.
frequent
growing.
critique, what do you call it?
Critic.
Frequent critic. Thank you. Of millennials,
Yes.
I can agree with your assessment.
I think millennials
also-
are too big to critique en masse. Like,
No, I
if
know,
I crap on the boomers, it's not really fair to people that are of that age.
Also, I've been waiting for the thing to come along that's going to disrupt flying, because flying is the worst. I think we can all
VTOLs.
agree, and there's no other like industry that other than cell phones that cares about you less and just will make your experience more and more miserable and extract more money.
You already missed the IPO. You missed the IPO that corrects for flying?
No,
Zoom.
I know, no, exactly. Zoom, and also climate pressure.
Yeah.
Like literally, climate pressure may be the only competitive threat to airlines right now, and I'm here for it.
I think it's actually going to happen. I mean, a lot of
Make it happen.
Speaking of millennials, a lot of millennials like they don't want to leave their house. They want to work from home. They want to be on their device. Yada yada.
The commutes are bad. Why would you want to go sit in traffic for 3 hours?
It's
Exactly.
an observation, not a criticism.
All right.
Alex.
The,
no.
the tone.
As I recently took.
What a millennial!
I know,
Oh,
the-
you're my turn. How's your feelings?
No. To be super clear, though, I pointed out that you were being irksome, and now you are reacting as boomers always do. Oh, I'm being criticized. It's
I'm
your
not a boomer. I'm a
fault.
Gen Xer.
Oh no!
I'm a Gen Xer.
I don't-
You millennials are soft. They call you snowflakes for a reason because
Okay.
you melt with the
I
faintest
I used to work construction. I don't think you did. So
Oh,
No, I
dear.
was just a dishwasher and carried
Yeah. I've
buckets
also
of
raised
ice up for
livestock.
12 hours.
I
All
would
right,
like
here we
you
go.
to know that I recently took the New York Times quiz and discovered that I am an Xennial. I'm like the old millennial, so I'm here to bridge the gap between
You're a
you.
Gen Xer, man. Come on.
No, I took the quiz.
it's a serious quiz, Jason. are we doing more of our pick a company game? 'Cause I
I'm
was
gonna
having
do one
fun with
right
that.
now.
All
Okay,
right.
one more.
All right, pick a service. Which service will have more members in 5 years? Netflix, Spotify, or Disney Plus? 3, 2, 1. Disney Plus.
Disney Plus.
Spotify. Oh.
Go ahead.
I have been impressed by learning about how strong the Disney brand is in the market. People go to Disneyland like 5 times a year.
Correct.
It makes no sense to me, but I've heard it, learned it, get it. I think music is far more universal, and I think even more so than G-rated movies about fawns that get shot.
What about Marvel and Star Wars
Yeah, you know
and
about
Pixar?
I think we're on the
you
tail
do
end of this.
understand they own those
We are on
as
the
well.
tail end of these franchises. They have extracted
God.
every possible dollar that they can. Toy Story 4. I was in an Uber on the way here. It's like Toy Story 4, rated G. Toy Story 5. I just push me off a bridge. I don't care anymore about
you're
Woody.
talking about aesthetics and your personal taste. It is the number 4 most grossing movie. 9 of the 10 movies, highest grossing movies, are owned by Disney. The one that's not
Yeah.
is Spider-Man, owned by Disney.
Yep.
Which got the boost because Marvel gave them
Yep.
the handle.
Remember earlier about how something was the flexiest flex that ever flexed? what I was talking about was Disney's thread in which they were like, who's stoked for Disney Plus? And then in jumps Marvel, in jumps Pixar, in jumps just plain old Disney.
Yeah.
And it just went
It
on
was
and on and on.
gratuitous.
And I was like, take my money.
I was like, I'll pay double. This is how insane they've gone. They're like, we want to get Star Wars people. By the way, we're going to do the Mandalorian, the most loved niche character. Boba Fett's armor is Mandalorian armor. Oh, yeah, and Jon Favreau is going to do it.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, I'm all in for a TV series for that. Oh, yeah, we put Werner Herzog in as, like, just to do even more, like, insane thing. And they're like, but wait.
Yep.
We're also bringing Ewan McGregor back to do an Obi-Wan series. And I was just like, come on.
What is the price
It's
point?
like absurd.
I don't know. What is the price
Well,
point?
and here's the
$8
thing.
or something?
No, it's
that's-
$7.
I'll take 3.
It's $6.99.
That is cheap.
Literally, I got my little PayPal, looked at my little PayPal email and saw how much I pay for Spotify, and I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
You have the
I'm
family
not
plan
sure.
on Spotify?
I do.
Yeah,
And I was like,
for 5.
$15 seems like.
But you have 5
kinda-
accounts.
It's just
$15 feels like I listen to a
That's
lot of
too much.
music.
It is too
Really?
much.
That's too much?
Yes.
Wow,
In
I wouldn't
this-
pay $8 for Star
in
Wars, but
this
I'd pay $100 for
competitive
Spotify.
landscape.
I would pay almost unlimited amount of money for my music playlist. That is life to me.
Are you like one of the guys who's on Pitchfork all day long? Are you a Pitchfork guy?
I read a lot of
Getting
things. I don't think I'm a
real
Pitchfork
music
guy.
geek vibe here.
Oh no!
boy.
To be super clear, I was in love with music way before I fell in love with money and tech. Like this was my first thing that I loved.
I just think
5 years, though, we've bet.
the other thing that we're not taking into account too is the Peloton point, the branding, like what Disney has done. God help us all.
God
is
flex
turned
mode.
that's
God
the
mode
one.
flex.
God mode flex.
Yeah.
Because it just goes on, and you see the brands that are jumping in there, and you
Yeah,
just
click
like
it.
you have
Click
got
the
to be kidding
Disney
me.
thing. Let's see what it says.
Yeah.
For a $7 price
Click
point,
the
that's
Disney
impressive.
God mode
thing.
flex.
It should give you the
for
the-
every for
click the Disney
23
tweet
Avengers
and you'll
movies.
get the next like.
How
10
many of them
things.
are
Scroll down
good?
now.
Okay, but here's the thing.
All right.
The thing that we're not even taking into
All right, so
account.
Disney. Oh, Pixar checks in.
Yep, Pixar checks in.
Great.
Pretty soon there's Marvel. Then there's Star Wars. Like you're just like, what? It takes you a minute to sort of see the whole thread because people answered.
Yeah.
Then there's the Monopoly people. But they are, right? Disney is like the monopoly that's like America's one content company. And they have merchandise galore. Under Eisner,
Yes.
he has turned that empire
It's crazy.
into a merchandise machine. So every little child in Target is being sold Disney Plus
Oh wait,
right
you don't
now.
have kids.
I just got married though.
It's
All
any
right,
minute
check
now.
back with us
Any
in 3
minute
years.
now.
Here's the thing. I
right.
literally just my twins started watching like Pixar films. We've watched Finding Dory and Finding Nemo at least 15 times each. They don't want to watch another one. They want to watch it for the 14th or 15th time.
Did you ever just like whack them with a book? Like whack.
No, we do books too, but I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
the Pixar films are awesome. They're incredibly high quality, great morals.
I like Pixar. I thought Inside Out was tremendous. I think Pixar is worth a lot of money. I just don't think that Disney Plus in a 5-year time frame, which was the question,
Yep.
will surpass Spotify, which already has like what 130 million active accounts right now. Not all of which
Yeah.
are paid, but like I mean, it is 9
I'm
figures.
talking
of,
paid. Disney going to roll over everybody. I predict
I agree.
Disney first to 1 billion subscribers, 1 in 7 people on the planet. Paid.
Yeah.
I think they
Alright.
will get to 250 million before Netflix does, and I think they'll hit 500 million within a decade.
And
That is
then,
legitimately
frankly,
interesting.
It will not astonish me if they buy Spotify.
Disney.
Yeah, it would. The only reason they would not is because because the antitrust possibilities of owning yet another subscription service.
Yeah, but really,
But
does
Apple
vertical
Music-
integration bother anybody?
Not
content?
Not.
I mean, the
this
good news
government.
is it is
Yeah.
for
Not so
the
far.
best of consumers. Like right now, we can all sit here and talk about antitrust. $7 for everything is a lot better than paying $7 to Marvel, $7 to Pixar, $7 to Disney, and $7
Right.
to
Well,
Star Wars.
Currently, the only enforceable standard for antitrust is consumer harm,
Right.
which is essentially
a price.
pricing.
Exactly, it's a price
So if
question.
you're charging me
Non-existent.
$7 a month to
That's
be
my
America's
point.
only company, I guess I'm okay with that.
Last point from me on
Exactly.
this is how long does it stay $7? If one thing Disney is very good at is extracting
It'll be
value
12.
from
It'll be
customers.
12.
Right.
Trust me,
At which
yeah,
point it'll slow down its growth.
All right, let's go on to how horrible the world is. Which horrible topic would we like to
my
take
gosh.
on next? Everything is horrible.
These are both from Molly, so she has to decide.
Joey
I'm
Epstein.
really
and-
in the dark place. I know, totally. I was like, I'd like to talk about these two giant bummers.
would we like to talk about YouTube's algorithms
I want to talk about Joey Epstein.
or Joey and Epstein?
Joey Ito. That was
Well,
a little bit of a slip.
considering I am in
I have questions.
Epstein's black book,
I have questions for you.
you have questions. Go ahead. Here we
Yeah.
go. Do it.
I mean, how hard does this get? Because this is everybody I know, right? When
Yeah.
I look at who is weighing in on this conversation, I mean, Joe Ito yelled at me in a New York Times board meeting in 2013 for suggesting, by the way, that the tech industry was starting to get a little bit focused on the trivial and not that important. Yeah, and he was like, I think that's bullshit,
Yeah. Ooh,
Sorry.
You can curse on this. Who gives a fuck?
But it's like people
Ask questions.
people
Go
I
ahead.
admire
Yeah.
and have Lawrence Lessig jumping in to say it's okay that Joy Ito got this money not just for MIT Media Lab but for his own personal investment funds. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then I look at and then I'm like, but Jason was represented by John Brockman.
I still am
and you went
represented
to
by
one
John
of those
Brockman.
right? And you went.
I was
to
at
one
all
of
those dinners.
You were at all those dinners. Like,
Yeah, so I can
what
explain
do
everything.
I need to know here?
Yeah, I can tell you everything.
I know you got stories.
I have all the stories. I mean, I have.
Is it plausible to you in the slightest that Joy Ito doesn't know what's going on when he takes this money? In the
Okay.
slightest.
Let's start with chapter 1 of this. Chapter 1 is the pre-Jeffrey Epstein is convicted of a misdemeanor somehow being involved with a massage with a 15-year-old maybe and got a slap on the wrist.
This is the 2008.
2008. Yeah. So that's the demarcation point. Behavior before that and after that, you can look in two different lenses.
Okay,
Epstein,
but
I
even
met.
in 2008, didn't he? He was on the sex offender. He was a registered sex
Absolutely.
offender by then. I mean, it was not.
So well, let's get there. Let's get there. I don't think Joey should have taken the money from him. I never would have. After 2008. Before 2008, I almost took money from Jeffrey Epstein. First time I'll tell the story.
Okay.
I was at a TED conference when it was back in Monterey, and I went to the billionaires dinner. Not a billionaire, but there were 50 people there. It was like the top 5% of TED, or 10% of TED got to go to this. I'm friends with Brockman because he's my agent. The dinner is the top 10% of TED. Bezos, Ev Williams, Larry, Sergey, Steve Case, and then all of John's clients.
Yep. I mean,
Brian
everyone
Green, everybody.
is there. Like, you can look back. The photos are on. Like, you can.
And
look
I'm a
back
kid,
it's
right? I'm
everyone.
like, whatever this is, 15 years ago. So I'm like 30 years old in the room like this. Woof. And I was just talking
Right.
to Evan Williams about it. Now, I didn't know Epstein was actually even at those dinners because I didn't meet him until years after, but he was in that dinner. So imagine you go to a dinner at TED or the D conference, and there's famous people in the room. So nobody in those pictures with him would have any idea who the guy was. And all they said was he's a billionaire who donates. He manages money for Nathan Myhrvold. What I knew, like maybe 5 years in, was he managed Nathan's money. He managed Lee Wexler's money, who I'd never met and didn't know, but I knew Nathan. And he just gave money to scientists for research. He was a germaphobe. He never ate. He never drank when he was out at dinners. I just remember that for some reason. And he specifically told me one time at dinner that he didn't eat.
So you sat there and talked to him.
I
during
talked
these.
about one dinner.
At one of these,
He
okay.
came to one of my dinners because he used to come to all my Silicon Alley events. That's how I wound up in his phone booth. At some point, he wanted to invest in Silicon Alley Reporter, my first magazine in the 90s. So he invites me up to the townhouse. The door opens. It is an unbelievably attractive assistant who is 30 years old and who went to Harvard or MIT. I remember she was Ivy League. She brings me upstairs. Maybe even flirted a little bit with me, I'll be candid. Like, this was like a very stunningly beautiful person. Like, I thought they were a model. And I do remember that. And he was like kind of like a playboy with his own jets, and he always had 2 or 3 women around him. But they were always like Gillian Maxwell, who I knew, very attractive, educated women. I never saw anybody young. That was the weird thing. I think he hit all that. We go up to a second floor of his townhouse. I kid you not, his office was larger than most like Four Seasons hotel lobbies. I mean, this was thousands of square feet with like 10 seating areas. He's like, have a seat. He's talking about the magazine. He wanted to invest $1 million in the magazine. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And okay, whatever. And it never materialized. I never called him back up. I just thought it was weird.
Why didn't you do that? Why did you not take the money at the time?
I try
Did
to
you get a
remember
vibe?
why that was.
Did you get a creepy vibe or?
No, I didn't get a creepy vibe at all. I got a very smart vibe. He was charming. I mean, he was like the type of person like Bill Clinton, go figure, who would look at you and give you 100% of their attention and would have great advice for you. He was smart. He was a smart, charismatic, rich guy. So it checked all the boxes of what you would experience. And as a young journalist, it was like, okay, yeah, this is no different than Bill Gates or Nathan or anybody else I would meet. And then this 2008 thing happened, and I never got invited on the plane, never got invited to the island. And I brought Shenny with me, Shenny Jardin from Boing Boing, who's been going off on Twitter about this.
X-E-N-I, Shenny. Yeah.
Shenny. Shenny used to work for me. She was my conference producer. She went on to Boing Boing. She's really on fire about this and has good reason to be, I believe, actually. And I brought her to those dinners. and I introduced her to my agent, John Brockman.
Yeah.
And after 2008, people were involved with Epstein. And when I heard about what happened with Epstein, the way it was framed to me, and I don't remember by who, because I went to some, what was the name of that thing? I think Epstein and Gillen were at one of these fundraisers for the X Prize or something, and I kind of ran into him at that, and I think it was kind of like it was all like, yeah, somebody gave him a massage, and they might have been underage, but, he just got a work from home thing. So this is the real sinister part about it. What happened was, like, atrocious.
Right.
Then whoever this prosecutors are in Miami framed it as a slap on the wrist, like he got an ankle bracelet. Yeah, you may have been involved with somebody who was a year or two young or something. That's how it was framed. So I think what happened with Joey was they framed it to Joey, whoever, Epstein's people, he had PR people working this. And I think that it was framed as like, yeah, he just got he might have been with a 16-year-old instead of a 17-year-old kind of thing. And it was just a slap on the wrist. He's fine. He still lives in Miami. He's not in jail. And then they just didn't do their background on this, and he should not have taken the money, and he should have resigned.
But Molly, you said before the show, we read the same article, that the staff and the students at MIT were telling him, don't do this. So he had people on the ground saying it wasn't.
Of course not.
Like,
it was an error in
Ethan
judgment,
Zuckerman-
for sure.
Yeah.
A big error in judgment, yes.
Yeah.
Huge.
Right. I feel like we say
Yes.
error in judgment, and it sounds kind of mild. And
I'm just letting you know how it was presented
Right.
at the time.
right.
You
But
can make your own
certainly-
judgment if that seems like mild. I think that he's a sociopath, Epstein, obviously.
Sure. I mean,
And a sociopath can trick people.
clearly there were people by their own account at least, people who have resigned from MIT, Ethan Zuckerman and a woman who's been tweeting about being a student there who wrote a letter and said, like, I don't think we should be in business with this person. And Ethan Zuckerman said, I'm not going to meet with him, and I don't think you should either.
Yeah.
Like, there were certainly people who were like, sexual misconduct with a minor, full stop.
Yeah, period.
Period.
Period. We cannot be involved in this.
So you think you should resign?
Here's the thing. When these things, I never even imagined I would ever be anywhere close to anything like this. Like, and nor did the 50 or 100 people in the room at those dinners at TED would ever think this, that you would be in the room with somebody. Joey made a big mistake taking that money. Joey is a great person. He's a great human being. And he did something so stupid. So I think the price that he tried to put out there was, I'm going to raise twice as much. I think the price is he's going to resign.
Yeah.
I think he's putting it off, but it's going to happen.
The thing I think has been
He
somewhat...
tried to not resign with that. I'm going to raise as much money. He will resign.
I
There's
think
no
there
way
was-
he survives it.
I mean, and I hate to be absolutist, but I am going to be an absolutist about child rape.
Yeah, of
Period.
course.
Right? And it's the thing that has not been talked about that much is there was money raised for MIT Media Lab, but he also took money for he also disclosed a business relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
This is key.
Took money for his own investment fund, enriched himself
He
with
took him as an
child
LP.
rape money. Right? Like,
Yes.
you can't, there's no sugarcoating that.
No.
And I think that our willingness to sugarcoat that as an industry writ large, right? A group of all these people who I love and admire and have read their work and really, wanted to emulate, to see them sort of not be absolutist about that, I find upsetting.
Here's what it is. Joey Ito spent 30, 40 years being a great human being. And so what you're seeing there is those people who know that Joey Ito, who spent 30 or 40 years being a great human being, which is what those people believe, Lawrence Lessig, who was a victim of child abuse, that he talked about in New York Magazine. This is my interpretation. Those people are going to bat for him based on that 30 or 40 years and not thinking about it as considered as you are, that, this person took money from a child rapist. And then the other thing that was
A
really
convicted
sinister.
child rapist.
Yes, and here's the other thing. The way they spun this was he got a massage he never had sex with. He never raped anybody. It was like a statutory thing. So they presented this and sugarcoated it in the best possible light. Epstein recruited girls and committed statutory rape, I guess.
80. The Miami Herald
80.
uncovered 80 separate girls
Yes.
who were recruited and assaulted by this man
It's crazy.
and other women in his orbit. And he wasn't super secret about it.
And the way it was presented to everybody else was he one time got a massage from an underage girl, and that was it.
But I
That's
mean,
how they presented
certainly
it.
But he
his
was still running the island
Yeah, the
even
continued
after.
actions.
That's the problem. So
This
it's
is the
after
problem.
2008.
It's like it's hard for me, and this is where
But I'm not
it gets
defending
hard
any
for
of
me.
it.
I know, totally. And
Yeah.
this is where it gets hard for me to believe that, like, really, nobody ever whispered, "Look, I like to gossip."
yeah.
People talk about stuff
Yeah.
like pedophile island.
Yeah.
Which is
Like,
what people
clearly,
called it.
People knew about the island, even if they hadn't been to the island. Like, there's just no universe in which you're all
Yeah.
drunk at parties and going to these fun dinners and like letting it know it's off the record and like no journalists.
Well, he took all these scientists to the
Stuff is
island
coming
too.
out.
Yeah. Listen, I've been to Richard Branson's
I'm just-
island twice.
Necker.
Yeah, I've been to Necker twice as a guest. Now, if something happened at Necker, now I would be dinged with like, I went to Child Molestation Island. Like, if somebody there was molesting people, I think that's the problem. Is now, just being on the other side of this, I've had 10 calls from the press like, explain yourself being in his black book. I'm like, next to every other person notable in
Well,
the
and
90s.
I guess that's what then gets really, and this is the muddy water, right?
Yeah.
The muddy water is like, now what do I believe about everyone?
And now it's a conspiracy theorist. Like,
Well, it's
all
not
the-
even. No, it's not. I'm not even trying to make it a conspiracy theory. I'm literally like,
Well, I'm talking about
what
his
am
death,
I
yeah.
supposed to think, right? Because in a room full of 10 tech luminaries, there's a real chance that one of them totally knew this stuff was going on. There's a real chance,
It's possible, yeah. I agree.
and
it's
I don't
probable.
know. I actually just feel like,
Well, it's probable that Marvin Minsky was involved in it.
well, yeah,
That's what they said. But who knows? That's one lawsuit. He's dead, so we don't know yet.
right.
So I guess it's alleged that Marvin Minsky, I should be very careful with my language.
Yes, it is alleged in a lawsuit that Marvin Minsky, the
Minsky.
co-founder of the MIT Media Lab, had sex with one of these girls
Who was underage.
who was underage, children
the time,
a
yes.
child. And so, like,
A
at some
16-year-old.
point, just by the transitive properties of throwing a stone in a pond,
Yeah.
people have ripple on them.
Yeah.
And I don't know who the people are. And I sort of just, I'm at this point where I'm just like, I don't know who to trust. I don't know why you're covering when you are. Like, maybe it's the 30 years of being a good person, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's the actual, just like wide-ranging ripple of corruption that is
That the people
is the
signing that
American
letter
condition.
are in on it. Yeah, this is like.
But at least some of them are. Like, just as an
You would think it
empirical,
has to
it's kind
be
of like how we know
somebody,
there's aliens
that's
because of the
interesting.
sheer number of
Planets?
universes and
Yeah.
planets in the planets in the
Yeah.
universe.
Oh, it's so
like
dark.
by the transitive property, like just empirically by the numbers.
Right.
Some of the people who signed that letter.
Well, I mean,
are
think about
covering
how
up for him,
crazy
but
this
knew about
is.
it.
The lawyer who was representing him, Dershowitz, is also. Alan Dershowitz
Alan
is also
Dershowitz.
allegedly.
And he's not-
allegedly. Just please don't sue me. I'm saying allegedly. He's allegedly was also with one of these underage people.
Yep.
And if you read his tweets, you know his perspective on this, which he's made. And I don't want to paraphrase because I'll get sued. But I mean,
No, he made something. There was some tweet about.
This is also why nobody's talking about this,
Statutory.
by the way.
oh gosh, the threat
Right,
of
the threat of being sued
retaliation.
is like we're all sitting here like we're worried about getting
I mean,
sued
it's
by the
literally
people who are.
it's the most powerful people in science, academia,
it's
technology,
And media.
government.
Oh, and government.
Because let's not forget the Trump and Clinton part too. Like,
and
Yeah.
Prince Andrew. Like it's
and
not.
Prince
it's
Andrew.
all very
it's
bad.
internationally it's the international power structure at work, and we're sort of seeing it just
Yeah.
manifest, and it's probably only going to get worse. This is hardly the end of it.
Well, I mean, he killed
But it's-
himself. So why? Or he was murdered. I think he killed himself.
I feel like both are equally possible, frankly.
I put it at
so
80.
I'm just
I put it at
leaving
90-10.
Yeah.
that he killed himself versus was killed.
Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, to be killed in custody?
Well, custody is a loose
You
word
mean,
for how
are you talking about the
incarceration
same
works.
prison where Whitey Bulger was killed in custody?
Yeah.
Because
Doesn't have a great
that
history.
Does happen.
Yeah,
I've
that
been
people get
watching-
shanked.
I've been watching The Wire.
Yeah, people get shanked. It's
I
true.
still need to watch the wire. And on that very, very awkward
Yes.
segue, I must
right.
go to my team, the All Hands.
You're
not
just
a-
trying to escape.
Not
trying
a-
to escape.
I deliberately stayed an extra 10 minutes because
We
I did not
have
want to leave in the middle
Epstein's
of that.
Black
so it would
Book
look
here,
weird.
Alex.
Thanks, man.
You're not in the book.
It would look weird if he ran out the door
God.
like, I have got to go now.
I've got to go. We're going to go on
I
to
was
our
really,
next.
really trying to wait for the natural conclusion of that.
Well played.
Lovely to see you both.
Yes.
I will just say that if WeWork does go public, worth $47 billion, I retire.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good seeing you.
Noted. I know, nice to meet you.
Good
Congratulations.
seeing you.
Thank you.
All right. Let's talk about.
Just going to gently.
Hang on a second. Let's pause so we can get him out
Okay.
the door.
Go ahead. You can go now. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right. Which one do you want to do next?
I have a lot of questions for you about long-term stock exchange. I'm sorry
Let's do
that
it.
Alex is leaving,
No
but
problem. I can do that. That's easy.
he's like, wait.
All right. 3, 2, 1. When you're ready.
No,
Okay. Okay.
Alex, thanks so much, man. Great job.
Nick, you're taking care of me.
Absolutely. It's getting a little nuts in here.
My fault. It's my fault.
All right.
Okay.
1 second.
Yep.
Just line her up.
All you, Molly.
All right, 3, 2, 1 when you're ready.
All right. And we're ready in 3, 2.
All right, thanks to Alex from Crunchbase for helping us sort through the news, including the horrible Jeffrey Epstein news. Eesh. It's gross. It's disgusting.
It's just gross. I think that's like ultimately the whole
horrible.
thing just makes you so sad.
It's also horrible. You know, I'm always like have to be so careful like in how you say things, but I never I mean, it really is some massive pathology that this person must have had. That the scale of this crime is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And the amount of effort it took, the amount of coordination, and then it became like a multi-layer thing where people were procuring for him, and allegedly Gillian, who I know, Maxwell, and her sister, who was big in the tech industry, she did Magellan, so they were around a lot. I don't know if you remember that. Remember
Yeah, I remember
Magellan or something? It was one of the search engines. I can't remember. Maybe it was not Magellan. Anyway, Gillian's sister is famous in the internet business. She was in Michael Wolff's burn rate book a lot.
Yeah.
Michael Wolff covered Jeffrey Epstein, and it's just like I'm trying to figure out what the lesson here is. Rich people,
It's a bad. I mean, it's
power.
interestingly, it is.
What is the lesson? How do we
It's similar.
reconcile all of this?
It's similar to what you were saying. I think about Adam Newman in a way. It's like there really is a layer. I mean, we're learning this in all the painful ways. Like there's just a layer of society.
Yeah.
It's not even just America.
Yeah.
That is not accountable.
A global elite that's not accountable.
There is
to
a
anyone.
global elite that's not accountable. I know that sounds like some Illuminati stuff, but
Well,
it's never not been the case. And it's just the case at a bigger level now because the network effects are so much stronger, and so the networks themselves are so much bigger,
Right, and they have so much more money.
and we have so much
And
more money.
They've hacked democracy by placing people in power.
Yeah.
Because I read this other piece and said something about Epstein had donated to the prosecutors' nonprofits, and
Dude,
I'm like, wait a second, how does
basically the Jeffrey Epstein bureau chief of the New York Times, the guy who was tasked with reporting on Jeffrey Epstein, solicited a $30,000 donation
What is
from
going
Jeffrey
on?
Epstein
So
for
even-
his preschool, and the New York Times quietly exited him,
And
Andy
never-
Rubin style.
a year later, then they admitted to it?
Yep.
So the New York Times did
And
not want
yes,
to take the
it's just been
reputation
like,
hit
Yeah.
of one of our journalists is a scumbag who took a $30,000.
Also, that's your price?
That's the I didn't want to bring that up, but I agree.
I'm not trying to be a jerk, but like you took a $30,000 donation
I
to
never-
your preschool. You were willing to compromise your entire
Life.
career, your entire life, all of your journalistic integrity
30 times.
That's your price.
$30K, not 30 million, not 3 million, not 300,000, $30K.
But
really,
it shows you
one
too.
speaking gig.
That must be like the level of charm that you're talking about too. I mean, it just is. But yeah, it's like no one. And then when you add in all of those factors, you look at the reporting. You look at all the reporting that was covered up or buried or never happened, or
Yeah.
the threats to Graydon Carter, the bullet on his doorstep, and
or
the
the dead cat's
head, and you know,
Yeah.
and then just quiet pressure. Like who knows what happened at ABC? Why they didn't ever run the stories? You just realize that there's this like you're not. It's like me. It's literally like me saying that. Oh, that's so sweet that WeWork's going to do a summer camp for children. Like,
Yeah.
we're not ever. I'm not ever going to have full awareness of how like bad everything is, and maybe that's better.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go start a summer camp for children.
I'm trying to reconcile it myself, of like, because I thought back on it, like, is there some lesson for me
Right.
to take away from this, like when I meet rich, powerful people? Because at that age, I was probably impressionable, and like meeting him, and I remember being super impressed by like he had multiple jets, he had the island, he had the biggest townhouse in Manhattan, and like he really like crafted this whole aura in order to impress people. Like the giving to scientists, wearing the Harvard sweatshirt. Every time I saw him, he was in a Harvard or a Yale sweatshirt.
Harvard, by the way, Not a word. Not a word about Harvard.
Oh,
who
not
took
giving
just as
and
much
not giving the money back.
Right. I mean, didn't Joey have even deeper connections with Harvard, arguably, than MIT Media Lab? Like, they're not
Harvard
giving the
took
money back.
Harvard took much more money.
Yeah, and
I think it's tens of millions from
And then
Harvard.
here's what happens, too, just on the purely personal level, right? Like, I look back, I had forgotten about that board meeting interaction, actually, and then a friend of mine reminded me, was like, remember that? That was awful. And I was like, oh, yeah, you're right, that was awful. Like, I sat down and somebody was like, ugh. But I thought, okay, did I get yelled at in that meeting? Like, then it causes me to look back and go, did I get yelled at in that meeting because this investor and promoter of the tech industry really sincerely disagreed with this thing that I said that 2 years later everyone was saying? Or did I get yelled at because, like, women are slightly less than human at this level, right? Like, and then you start to look back every time something like this comes out about someone you've worked with, which is all too frequent.
I know it's getting weird.
Then you look back I look back at everything that's happened in my career, and I think, when I went this way instead of this way, was it because of me?
Yeah.
And my talent and my abilities? Or was it because women are slightly less than human? Just at some subconscious level, right? Like,
Or
to these
conscious
people.
level, yeah.
Or conscious level.
Wow.
And I don't know, right? You and I were both journalists at the same time.
Right.
Here in the Valley.
Yeah.
I have never been to a billionaire's dinner.
That's true. There
Why
you go.
is that?
Yeah. Oh,
I don't
interesting.
know.
Yeah.
And then that begins. Then that's the lesson I don't even want to think about, right? Because I'm just like, but I'm awesome.
Yeah. No.
Summer camp.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting. No, I mean, I look back on it, and I'm a highly networked person, obviously.
Yes, you're really good at that. I'm not trying to take anything
Oh, no,
away from
and I
you
was just
either.
thinking about the number of times I wound up next to somebody who is horrible. And it's happened 3 times in my life. Once, Epstein, which was just,
Oy.
I had one meeting with the person. I was never in business with them. Charlie Rose, I was on Charlie Rose. And I did a conference with Charlie Rose. I had no idea that he was haranguing and harassing the people who worked for him. Mm-hmm. And then I did a TV show pilot with Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
His people approached me. I didn't approach them. And we sold the pilot to one of the top 3 networks. It never made it on air because his career imploded. And I'm just like, it's not everybody, but boy, is it frequent.
And also, can I just say 3 people that you know of?
That's a fair point, too. Maybe there's 3 more. Oof.
There could be way more than 3.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Ugh.
This is the state that I find myself in because of this story. I'm like, who is horrible that I don't even know about, let alone all the people I know about now?
Yeah, yeah, it is. I'm like, is there something I should have done differently? Like, I was talking to Shenny about it. I won't get too into it, but I was talking to Shenny and also Doug Rushkoff about it, and I was like, we were at those dinners, but we never got invited to the island or on the plane, and we were at those dinners where they flew everybody. Is there a reason or something to do with the 3 of us? And one of those folks speculated that they didn't think that we would ever go for that because we were kind of like independent, like outside blue-collar people, maybe not part of the establishment. All 3 of those people were kind of outsiders. Yeah. Maybe we would not have been, we would have been the whistleblowers in that case. We would have been the people who would have been like, what? Go to an island and what's going on? Like, this is crazy. Mm-hmm. Anyway.
Hopefully. That's a good story to tell yourself, and hopefully it's true.
I'm just glad. I mean, I'm just thinking to myself, like, I did the TV show with Harvey Weinstein, the pilot, and that makes me to this day, wonder about my judgment.
I
like,
was CBS.
I didn't know anything, but like, I was just like, wow, I really have to maybe vet people more. But I never was in business with Epstein, so I never had to vet him. But it certainly got me thinking about vetting people a little bit more. And Joey Ito obviously just pretended he didn't know. He knew. People told him not to take the money, right? So he knew. He knowingly took the money.
Yep.
That means I think Joey needs to just quit. He should just quit. I mean, save MIT the trouble. Just leave. Go away for a year or 2. And then what's the rehabilitation of a Joey Ito?
I don't know, but there will be one.
There will be one at some point, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about something innovative in tech that's not horrible. Is there anything? I think the interesting thing is
TikTok?
Well, yeah,
okay.
I think that's in the horrible.
This is an actual thing that happens to me now.
Yeah.
And you will get here soon.
Yeah.
My own child will call me, sometimes from the other room.
Yeah.
But sometimes from school or the cafe or his dad's house or whatever, and be like, hey, will you go like my TikToks?
Like my TikToks.
Yeah.
You need to move up in the
I feel
rankings.
actually really happy that at least I'm still in the circle where he wants me to go like his TikToks.
Yeah, he hasn't blocked you or muted you yet?
Not a full-on teenager. Yeah, exactly. I can still look at them, but it's the thing.
I'm wondering why we allow TikTok in the United States.
Yeah.
Because it's a Chinese-owned company.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't mean to be a conspiracy theorist here, but obviously the Chinese government picks the winners. So What are the chances that the Chinese government is not using that data to study Americans to get some edge? Zero.
In fact, we know from, I think, Bloomberg reporting, we had this woman on the show, that the Chinese government maintains an office in TikTok headquarters.
Yeah.
So it'd be like literally if the FBI had an office at Instagram
Yeah.
where they just
Or the CIA, because
hoovered
it's a
up, or the
foreign
CIA
country.
actually,
it's
secret,
foreign.
more secrety,
Yeah.
where they just hoovered up all the data. Well, in this case, it could just be that they're hoovering up the domestic data, right? The data of the Chinese users of TikTok. It's a completely different product there.
Yeah. No, they're slurping up the American
But they're
data.
definitely slurping up.
And then you have to
American
ask
data.
yourself, well, this has access to your microphone and camera. What are the chances they're not listening in and targeting and knowing who an executive is in business and turning on their microphone covertly?
Yeah.
What are the chances that's not occurring?
I mean, what are the chances that Instagram's not doing that too? Actually, you know the thing where you
Well,
get the ad? You know how everybody thinks they're listening?
Yeah.
I think I figured it out. I don't think it's Facebook or Instagram. I think it's Google.
Ah.
I think it's Google doing the listening.
Got it. So Google's listening,
And
tagging
then it's just
people,
all the ad, you know,
and it's
just
all the glue.
It's all the glue.
the ad
That's
retargeting
my theory.
databases.
I
That's
haven't-
possible.
This is alleged.
Yeah. When people, what you're referring to is people see ads for things they were just talking about.
Right.
And they wonder if their microphone's on from Alexa or Facebook.
Right.
And
And
then-
Facebook has been like, no, because it's always an Instagram ad and it's always
Yeah.
like immediate.
No, retargeting works cross-platform. So if
Yep.
you were, and so what they claim is, well, you probably got an email from that same person about the Mark Knopfler concert,
Which, like, no.
and then Gmail Gmail would tag you if, like,
Sure.
if you emailed me like, hey, the Mark Knopfler, are you going to see Mark Knopfler? It would tag both of us as Mark Knopfler.
Mm-hmm.
Then we would see it on New York Post, Drudge Report, Gmail, wherever we saw ads,
Right.
including Facebook and Instagram.
But this is the thing where you're, let's say, in a taxi in in a taxi in Minneapolis with your man friend who says, I love Richardson trucker hats. Those are the only hats I buy.
Yeah.
And then
Boop.
I get an ad for the Richardson trucker hat, which I've never purchased in my
So
life or even heard of until that exact moment in the taxi.
I need to get one of those bags that you put your phones in. What do they
Kinda.
call that? There's that bag.
What I think is super interesting about
Faraday
TikTok
cage.
separately from
Yeah.
all of that is that I do think when we look at the competitive landscape and the idea of competition, that I think what's so interesting to me is that China is incubating this like parallel tech economy. Like behind the Great Firewall, they are growing the only other companies of the same size and power
Yeah, same scale.
as Facebook or Amazon or Google. And so that at some point, and you know, Huawei is Apple, like there's a parallel for
The
almost
clone,
everything.
yeah, Cisco, yeah.
And you just sort of wonder, what is it like? Clash of the Titans eventually? Like at
Yeah.
some point, this fully formed economy will spring out, assuming that we don't shut it down with national security concerns.
I just
And
realized
then there will be the battle for our future.
TikTok is a really interesting observation. I just realized TikTok is the most successful Chinese product ever in America.
In America, yeah.
Is there ever been a Chinese company, I mean, beverage, media, sneakers? No, there's not one other Chinese brand that Americans consume. And this one is used by, what, 40, 50 million Americans
Yeah.
already? So
And
it is
all of them
by
are the most
far in a
influential kids. Like it is.
we should. I
Instagram's
think we
worst
should
nightmare.
ban it. I know it sounds crazy, and maybe I sound like a crazy Trumpian, but until we have access to that market, I don't know why we're giving them free access, unfettered access
Yeah.
to our market.
It may be only a matter of time. It's really interesting. And you know, TikTok used to be Musical.ly.
Yes, they
So
bought
they
Musical.ly.
bought Musical.ly, which was the previous hottest thing
Yeah.
that my kid was into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, should Google launch their Dragon search engine and hand over the data to the Chinese government as part of that?
It's like this really interesting question about whether governments are going to fight out the future or companies are going to fight out the future.
Yeah, when you're dealing with China, there's no difference.
And there's no difference, right?
Yeah, so that's the thing about China is that they pick the winner. So
Right.
when you say TikTok, you're saying Xi Jinping's TikTok.
Yeah.
I mean, they pick them as the winner.
Yeah.
It's going to be very interesting.
It is very interesting. You're right. I mean, I think that question of whether to ban TikTok is going to become like the question. But so far, nobody's quite figured it out. Like Josh Hawley, maybe it's starting to be like, wait, TikTok? Everyone else is like, I don't understand. And it becomes this incredible Trojan horse where the children of America are feeding all of their most valuable data directly
Yeah.
to that Chinese government office that sits
And they're
inside their
already
headquarters.
starting to identify with socialism as the preferred
Totally.
political platform.
And what is more behaviorally powerful right now?
Social media,
Social
Instagram
media
type products.
is how you actually manipulate behavior.
So
You
there could be a whole
influence behavior.
psyops going on. The Chinese government, TikTok, plus the spread of socialism. I mean, this is getting Manchurian Candidate, but
It is, and I'm smiling, but you're also not wrong. I mean, what we are seeing is like this counterintelligence, like there's a global counterintelligence operation right now being played out at a scale we've never seen on social media, and TikTok is literally a Trojan horse from the Chinese government.
And we're sitting here
exciting.
sounding like conspiracy theorists,
I know.
but it's actually happening.
But we may actually not be wrong.
And it's happening in plain sight. That's the crazy part. Is that why is nobody discussing this TikTok thing? Shouldn't like the
I've literally only said. I mean, I've heard it on my show. That's the only place I've heard it until today.
It doesn't make any sense. All right, let's talk about the long-term stock exchange.
Okay, I do have a lot of questions
Go
on
ahead.
long-term stock exchange. What's the deal with that? Does anybody want to do that?
Yes.
Okay, is it or is it not more founder control? I interviewed Eric Ries recently. We haven't even run it yet because frankly it was just like a little like,
What?
Like, do you totally understand what your value proposition is here?
Yeah.
And there seems to be some critique. Sorry, Eric, we will air it eventually. There seems to be some critique that it gives founders more control.
Yeah. It will.
Then maybe not. I'm a little confused.
Here's how it works. Right now, shareholders all pay the same price for a share, whether they hold the share for a minute like a flash trader might, or a second, a fraction of a second like a flash trader, or like a pension fund for a decade, or a day trader who might hold it for days. Everybody pays the same price. This creates an artificial incentive, which is well documented, for management to manage companies on a quarter-by-quarter basis. In Silicon Valley, we try to manage things on a year-by-year, decade-by-decade basis. What is this company going to look like in year 10? In the case of Uber, how big can it get? Then we turn on profitability. Amazon, how big can it get? Then turn on profitability. But you want to see if you can get everybody habituated to the habit of ordering from Prime or taking an Uber instead of their own car, right? And these things take a decade to change consumer behavior. So the idea here is to somewhere between the stock markets, like quarter by quarter judgment of companies, and private with no controls and an unlimited horizon, is there something in between those two? And you already see that in the late stage when Masayoshi-san and SoftBank or TPG or Fidelity do those late stage investments. They have all these very unique deals where if the valuation goes down, they get issued more stock, right? So they're being a little more discerning about their holdings there in that late stage in preparation to go public. So the idea here is, well, if you held the share for 5 years, you would get 5 votes. And if I held it for 1 year, I get 1 vote. So the longer you hold the stock, the more vested you are, the more voting power you'd have. And it would absolutely put founders in complete control of their company while letting them still be traded. So then you, as a retail investor or a hedge fund or an endowment or a retirement fund, would then look at it and say, okay, I get to own part of this. I have no say in the voting. Is that worth it, and at what price? So maybe you'll pay a less price for a share. And if they could actually offer people buying the Uber at the IPO $30 a share if you agree to hold it for 5 years, $45 a share if you don't want to have any restriction. So then people could say, you know what, I'm a long-term holder. I believe in the future of the company. It would take out this spikiness is the idea. And you would be a platform to do that, is my understanding of it. I'm not an investor.
That is near as I can understand it as well, although the founder thing was still a little fuzzy to me. What I guess I don't understand is, isn't it the counter-argument to that seems to be that if you believe in a company and the fundamentals are strong and they're not obfuscating the business plan, you hold the stock for a long time. Like, who cares? Isn't shorting or moving in and out of a stock quickly is also a corrective mechanism.
You would think it's a corrective mechanism, except they're
Even though
highly
it really
manipulated.
But in that case, then I feel like IEX is a slightly better, where it's sort of like slow down the trading.
Slow down the trading has to happen.
Yeah.
That takes out one hack, which is front running.
Yep.
Me trading the stock right before you want to buy it. Putting that aside, that's like one little hack. The other hack of shorting and then creating fear, uncertainty, and doubt around a company, which is happening with Tesla, where they can do no right and they're just obsessing about, like, we found 10 cars in with dirt on them. Those cars the company's failing, even though the number of cars sold is hitting records every month. I'm not saying that the company's perfect, but they are hitting records.
I don't know.
The good news is,
I guess we'll find out, right? We'll find out if companies are interested in this and they want to sign on. It sounds like LTSE is going to thread the needle a little bit because they're going to offer either. Like they're willing to be an exchange, a hybrid exchange.
I think it's good to give it a shot and see if it changes behavior in some positive way and makes people more long-term, or if it actually drives another set of incentives of bad behavior. Like if WeWork could do it,
Yeah.
would then extend the bad behavior. Whereas with Uber going public and Lyft, they both lost a third of their or half of their market cap at different points in time in the early trading
Right.
because the public markets don't want to deal with the losing money concept to gain market share. The public markets are not interested
I
in
mean,
that.
okay, so I feel like that represents. So part of what I feel like is driving the interest in LTSE is this sort of Silicon Valley idea that like, you guys aren't in it with us for the long haul or whatever.
Yeah.
And on the one hand, I can see that. On the other hand, Uber loses $1 billion a quarter.
Right.
Like, isn't it a little reasonable and arguably even common sense to say like, that's a lot of money in an easily replicatable business model? Like
It's
how
hard to replicate 100 million customers having the app on their phone and the credit card and the trust in the brand.
Sure.
So people probably overestimate how hard it is to replicate
unless
that.
you're already an existing big brand.
Sure, if
Like,
you're
let's say
Apple,
Amazon.
or yeah, if somebody who
buys
already has
10 million
Prime,
cars all over America, and
and in that case they would just buy it. They'd buy Lyft or Uber just to get, the game. If they were really serious about the business, and they might, I think.
they could totally. Do
Amazon will wind up.
If
buying.
Amazon bought Lyft and it had an instant
It's going
delivery
to.
network,
I think
on top
ultimately it'll be very hard for both of those companies to stay public at under $100 billion market cap because Amazon, Apple, and Google all have really great stories of why they would buy them. Apple, because of apps and
Apple?
having, for sure they want to be in transportation. They want to do their own car. They've had Project Titan for a long time. So if they're buying their own cars and the cars are going to be distributed by phones,
Yeah.
and you've got somebody with 100 million credit cards on a global basis who's figured out the regulations in all 700-800 markets, well, that starts you on third base, right? So it's a no-brainer for them to buy it. And Amazon's a no-brainer for the deliveries, which
Amazon is really a no-brainer, and I don't.
Yeah.
I wonder. We have such good ideas on the show today. Really,
I know.
We
Why aren't we
should
venture
probably keep these
capitalists?
under wrap? Really?
Exactly. Wait, I
Seriously.
am.
It's
All right, we
'cause
did
I've never
TikTok.
gotten invited to any of those good dinners.
Exactly. Exactly. Give it time. You never know. Anything can
Ugh.
happen.
Yeah.
Jewel.
Okay,
Evil.
Jewel, and then I got to go back home to my child. Speaking of
Yeah,
which,
Jewel. Don't let your kids smoke Jewel.
I mean,
or
what is not evil about Jewel?
well, there's some
What is
group of
not
people
evil about
saying,
Juul?
okay, here's the counter argument. People are going to stop smoking cigarettes if they use Juul.
And an equal and opposite number are going to start smoking cigarettes because they use Juul.
Exactly, because they get the
So,
nicotine
like,
taste. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what is the long-term effect of getting delivered like 10x the amount of nicotine per
that's the other
drag?
thing. Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
And there's years ago, I actually interviewed a guy who had started a vaping company. He had vaping hardware that was like stainless steel because he was
Yeah.
like, look, people are buying these vaping devices that are just full of nasty chemicals. Like,
Right.
we know that when you heat, don't microwave your plastic containers because
Yeah.
you're just poisoning yourself slowly.
Yeah.
Those like the plastic vaping devices are basically that times a million. I don't even know if we know what's in a Juul.
No.
Let alone that you are still ingesting
have-
an addictive stimulant.
I have the perfect way to manage the
And nobody
Juul
at
issue.
me about coffee because I'm not having it.
No, exactly. Coffee's totally different. But here's the thing. They should just make Juul a prescription. You should have to go to a doctor and be prescribed it.
Right.
Solves the whole problem.
Thing.
Yeah, if they're claiming it's for to quit smoking,
Right.
just like nicotine, I think used to be, or the patch used to be, you would consult with a doctor. Consult with a doctor, and it could be a virtual consultation. It could be like Get Roman or Hims or any of these things where you just click on your phone and you go da 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 da. I want this, and then they give it to you.
Yep.
But at least there would be some throttling that it's not in a store for kids to buy pina colada flavor.
Right.
I mean, that's ridiculous.
And my kid has as much brand awareness of Juul as he does of TikTok.
How old's your
And
kid?
he is 12.
He's absolutely tried Juul or been offered it. Right?
No.
No? He's been offered it, for
I'm
sure.
sure he's been offered it. He's probably even tried
They
it.
kick kids out of
No,
school.
I know he has because he's friends with the 8th graders.
The 8th graders get kicked out of
Why
school
is
if
my
they
kid
bring it
so
to school,
cool?
right? They kick them out of school if they do it, right?
I'm sure they do.
Yeah, I
it
think
doesn't
they-
mean it's not happening. They're
They're as one kid told me,
it's
they're
a
so
giant-
small
Yeah.
that they can't find it on
It's
you.
a giant
like this
Oakland
big.
public school. Without question, he has been offered it or tried it or will during the course of this 7th grade year, without a doubt. And then I will kill that child who gave it.
All right, this has been an amazing episode. If your kid's offering Juul to other people's kids in the Oakland area, I'm gonna
Molly's coming for you.
I'm gonna advise you to stop the behavior. Hey, thanks Alex, thanks Molly Wood, great job, and thank you Emmy Award-winning producer Jackie's back in the building. I hope you had a great break. We missed you, kid, and Sir Charles, and Master Nick. Well done on the ones and the twos. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Woohoo!